School South. This evening, we will talk to you about the program of studies, the 2021 and 2022 program of studies school year. It's hard to believe that we're welcoming in the class of 2025. Right now, I'm hoping to meet all the class of 2024, and hopefully as we move through this school year and start next year, we'll be in a safer environment where everybody's able to return to school in a more traditional format. But this evening is important for you as you begin to navigate your child's high school career. I want you to think about interest and aptitude. While freshmen, you don't have a lot of choices as far as course selection, and when it comes to electives, there's a lot of already classes that are chosen for you. You do have the ability to choose level based on your aptitude. And so there are some requirements that go along with that, and the supervisors who you see up here on the panel will be talking about their programs that are offered, what's available for freshmen, and then the counselors will also continue that conversation, and your school counselors will be vital people as you move through, as your child moves through your high school. It's important that they get to know their counselors early on, and so that they can have a better understanding of helping your child make good decisions as far as choosing the courses that they choose. But again, everything really is going to come down to their interest and their aptitude. And it's important as parents that we continue to listen to our children and their choices. As much as we want to help guide them, it's really, they're kind of in the driver's seat. We want to make sure that we're meeting the classes that they really want to take. And the school counselors will help make sure that they fulfill the graduation requirements on the way, but balancing out what they're really interested in and what they're really good at is probably the best advice I can give you. So at this point, I'm going to turn the conversation over to our Director of Guidance, Dr. Lee McDonald, and welcome everybody to High School South's virtual program of studies evening for our 8th grade.
Thank you, Mr. Lepole. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lee McDonald, Director of Counseling, Health, and Wellness. I want to welcome you to our 8th grade program of studies transition night, welcomed by and joined by a number of my colleagues, supervisor colleagues. Toward the end of this evening's presentation, we'll also be joined by our school counseling team from High School South. So a little bit on that later. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just a couple of housekeeping items while I'm doing that. Number one, I am recording this. We'll make sure that this is posted on the district YouTube channel in the coming days. We'll also want to make sure that you're aware that we will turn on the chat feature later in the presentation, give you an opportunity to ask questions, not only to our supervisory staff, but also to our school counselors toward the latter part of the program. So again, welcome class of 2025. Hard to believe that we're already looking forward to the class of 2025. With that said, I want to just briefly highlight a couple things in terms of the transition. Certainly it is a big transition and there's going to be challenges as we kind of go through the COVID-19 pandemic here, but we've put a lot of supports in place, and I do believe we've provided above and beyond a number of resources, but know that we're here to help you and support you through this process, whether that's as an administrative team, as school counselors, as staff, as teachers. So you have a lot of supports for you and your family and your students to make sound decisions. So this afternoon, our high school counseling team had the opportunity to meet with students in Zoom breakout rooms, and I was able to jump in on a couple of those sessions. We had our peer leaders join them as well from the high school. So it wasn't just about the academic side, but it was also talking through what they can expect at the high school as they transition to High School South. So a really good opportunity for our kids to match a name with a face. Going forward, we're going to give you several weeks to kind of digest a lot of the information here. Our school counseling team will be back at the middle school, albeit virtually, the week of March 8th. That's when they'll actually have an opportunity to meet with their counselor one-on-one to finalize their course request. In the coming days, you'll have a chance to look at the mid-year grades. You'll have a chance to look through the program of studies offerings, have a conversation as a family, talk to teachers, talk to counselors before you make those final decisions in March. So have a little bit of time. In the fall, we'll continue with our orientation programs. Obviously, I think we all hope that those are in person and that we're able to have those face-to-face connections live but nonetheless, we'll do our best to make sure that we continue to run those programs as best as we can while keeping people safe. Also, additionally, in the fall, we'll make sure that we continue to run our transition groups to high school, led by our counselors, again, with the support of some of our peer leaders as well. So just want to highlight a couple of things with regards to the program of studies here. If a student is sitting in a standard program, which is a college prep program at the 8th grade level, assuming they have at least an 80%, they are able to certainly select into an honors course that makes them eligible. If they're sitting in an honors course and they want to continue along that path, they have to have at least a 70%. And that's a semester average from the first 2 quarters. That said, that doesn't necessarily mean that because you're eligible, that's the most appropriate placement. So you're going to hear that theme as we go through tonight, that it is about making appropriate course selections along the way. Just because you're might be eligible for a lot of different honors courses doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best fit for you. So use the resources to really think that through. If for some reason your son or daughter is not eligible for a course that they want to take, we do have a review process. This link will be posted on the district website. For the good of the group, I posted a link in the chat. Everybody should be able to access that link to the district website. There's an actual program of studies folder for 21-22. We will make sure that the link to this particular application for the review process is placed there. You'll also get a copy of it via email. Again, only for students that may not necessarily meet that criteria. Our supervisory team, our principals will take a look at those grades, other assessment scores to make a determination of whether or not that is an appropriate fit. Real quick, graduation requirements, 120 credits overall. Most of our students, if not all of our students, just about far exceed these graduation requirements, as students are able to take 35 credits a year. So if you do the math, that puts you up 140 overall. So as you go, and as Mr. Leppold mentioned earlier, our counselors are going to make sure that you have those graduations along the requirements along the way. That includes, of course, 4 years of language arts, 3 years of math, 3 years of science, 3 years of social studies, a financial literacy requirement, 4 years of phys ed and health, visual and performing arts, 2 years of a world language, and a year of 21st century life skills. There's a lot of different ways to meet these requirements. One of my pieces of advice is to make sure that you're trying to knock out some of those elective requirements so that as you get into junior, senior year, your schedule kind of opens up and you can take more electives along the way, not have to worry so much about those graduation requirements. This is just a snapshot of a handout that you'll find in that folder that I just mentioned that lists every course, elective course rather, by graduation requirement. So make sure that you look at that. It's a good tool as you're going through and thinking through what elective courses go toward what requirements. So again, in that folder that's posted on the district website. Definitely don't expect you to read this. This is another piece of information that's posted in that folder. It's just a guide to, of course, appropriate course placement. It just outlines the difference between a college prep course versus an honors course versus an AP course. So something to look at as you're kind of making those decisions and reading through that level of rigor and what to expect. You're going to hear a theme again about being balanced overall. Students need to make sure that they're not just thinking about the academic component, but they're thinking about their extracurricular commitments, any other commitments they have outside of school, and trying to find a balance. You know, ideally, as they go forward from 9th grade up to 11th, 12th grade, they're slowly increasing that level of rigor as they get older, find their interest, find their passion, become more mature. This is actually a snapshot of a new resource we also posted in that folder. You should have received this via email. It's a SMORE technology that our supervisors did an amazing job working with our teaching staff to put this together. There's a lot of interactive videos that you can watch to look at the different course offerings. So it's really brought to life our program of studies document. So I encourage you to take a look at that. So 9th grade program, this is kind of your standard program. The good news is, despite all of this information and all the resources, it's pretty straightforward when you think about having your kind of core classes, your language arts, your history, your math, science, social studies, your phys ed, and your world language, and then having a study hall, a common lunch, and really room for one elective. So that keeps it relatively straightforward as you, again, move throughout your career. You're going to have other opportunities to kind of widen those elective choices So something I want to share, you also get information on this if you haven't already via email. So one of the benefits of the Genesis system is that we're actually able to collect course requests in advance, starting this Friday at 3 p.m. And again, you don't all have to log in at 3 p.m. It's not a first come, first serve basis. We build our master schedule around what students want. But between now and that second week of March, when our counselors come down to meet with the middle school students, do yourself a favor, sit down, have that conversation at home about the course requests that your child is looking to take, plug those in. And it's a communication tool with the counselor. The counselor will sit down with the student to make sure that those requests are appropriate, talk about any other questions they might have. And then once you complete that scheduling process, you'll still be able to see what those final kind of course requests are from the parent portal. So again, as we say, make sound choices, challenge yourself, but be realistic and think about that balance piece that I spoke to. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our world language supervisor, Ms. Sherry Sizemore.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming to the webinar. Thank you, Dr. McDonald. As Dr. McDonald said, only 2 years of a world language are required for graduation. However, most colleges are looking for 3 or more, and honestly, most of our students do at least 3 years of a world language. For most of our students moving into 9th grade, from 8th grade is pretty straightforward. I'll go over exceptions in the next slide. But if you took 3 years of French, Chinese, or German in one of our middle schools, you go into French 2, Chinese 2, or German 2. It's just an automatic rollover, unless I'll go over exceptions in the next slide. For Spanish, because our Spanish students, wasn't ready yet, Lee, Dr. McDonald. For our Spanish students who have been taking it since the 2nd grade rather than since 6th grade, they go into 3 or 3 honors. And so like you're automatically rolled into 3. If you have an 80 or above, you're eligible for 3 honors. You should take 3 honors if you're enjoying the language and like the challenge and enjoy being able to communicate in another language. If you're not sure whether it's the right thing for you, the best thing to do is to talk to your 8th grade Spanish teacher. They know you, they know your language the best. If you came into our district later and you only have 2 years of Spanish, like you took 7-1 in 7th grade and 8-2 in 8th grade, then you would go into Spanish 2 as a 9th grader. Okay, Dr. McDonald. Options, like there are other options, like 90% of our students will do what we just talked about. But there are students who wish to switch in 9th grade to their heritage language. Because we don't have a heritage class for middle school, everyone takes a different language for middle school. So if you are a heritage speaker, your child is a heritage speaker of Chinese, French, Spanish, or German, and you did not take that language in middle school, we will offer a test so that you can be appropriately placed, because a lot of them can be placed higher than the level 2 or level 3 that most of our 9th graders take. Now, if you've taken that language in middle school, you're not eligible to test. The assumption is if you were appropriately placed in middle school, then you will be appropriately placed in 9th grade. But otherwise, information is going to be going out to parents probably next week, possibly the week after, to sign up if your child would like to take a heritage test. Again, you have to be a heritage speaker of that language in order to test. You cannot test, if you've been taking Spanish, you can't test to get in higher in Spanish. I lost here, never mind, I'll go on my own here. Students who, for whatever reason, wish to switch languages when they get to high school, but are not a heritage speaker of one of the 4 languages that we teach, you can begin level 1 in either French or Spanish. So you do have options to start over in a language in 9th grade. And by child study team placement, students may take Spanish, communication, and culture, if that's the appropriate placement for them. Okay, now, thank you all very much. Appreciate you coming.
All right, so I'm next. So I'm Kate Dobinson. I am the supervisor of health and PE. My subject area of the department is relatively easy because the students are just getting rolled over into their 9th grade health, 10th grade health, driver's ed, and they just kind of follow the sequence. So our health and PE program looks at the whole child, and it looks to dedicating an environment in which the students can participate in meaningful lifelong activities. We do some of the traditional team sports to work on sportsmanship and how to work as a team. But then we also do focus on lifetime activities such as tennis, badminton, archery, and dance. Our students really like our dance unit. It's one of those things where when they first hear about doing dance and PE, they all kind of cringe and moan about it. But as you're watching them go through the unit, they really do have a fun time with it. The health education classes, they will take one in freshman, junior, and senior year. Sophomore year is when they start getting ready to be able to drive, and they'll take driver's ed. Within our health education classes, we look at a variety of topics. We look at human relationships, substance abuse, mental health, decision-making, conflict resolution, all of those different aspects that they're going to need for their next stage of life. And it really does look at a comprehensive health and PE program to prepare them for lifelong fitness and developing those healthy habits and behaviors.
Hello, everyone. My turn. I'm Rich Steck. I'm the District Supervisor of Science, and typically this is always one of my favorite nights of the entire year, being able to talk and interact with all of you. But here we are in this pandemic, so we're going to a little bit different here tonight. But my passion for science is undiminished, and my wish is to have conversations with you and help you make the best decisions for your child. Our curricula are designed to spiral, so as children's experiences gradually increase over time. Moving from middle school to high school is typically a big jump. However, there are common practices and concepts that are part of being a scientist that are ingrained and incorporate into our curricula. So whether they're developing and using models or asking questions and designing experiments or taking a look at patterns and of course being able to explain the impact of scale, proportion, and quantity, that language spirals. They've heard it in middle school. They certainly will be hearing it in upper elementary school. And then as they move into high school, it just gradually becomes more complex and more challenging opportunities to explore through those practices the sciences of their passion. Typically as freshmen, there's a choice of either biology or biology honors. And our teachers work really hard to provide that smooth transition, but still emphasizing those practices, making observations, developing questions, being able to use inquiry to get at the content. Content is very important. Being able to understand and answer those questions are important, but that's only a percentage of a child's experience as they learn how to navigate the science courses of their choice, but also to chase their passion. What science do they really want to study most? And then, of course, the decision, are you going to be a science major or not? Then perhaps you are definitely considering going beyond the 15 credits. Most institutions of higher education require 4 years of a science, but they don't just want students taking every science that they can per se. They really want to see logical decisions. So for example, if I'm going to be studying bioengineering, I'm most certainly going to be taking AP biology and AP chemistry ultimately as I get into my upper grades in junior and senior year. And the engineering course are advanced topics and physics honors. I would work really hard to incorporate that sequence. However, if medicine or dentistry is something I'm more interested in, then why would I take a course that's going to study mostly about, engineering principles, planes, trains, and automobiles, shear strength, metallurgy? That's not really going to serve me. So my point being is that you really want to choose wisely and work closely with your child's counselor and myself and your child's teachers to make the most educated, logical, fruitful decision that 10 years from now, your child will look back on and say, I'm really happy with what I did in high school. I really enjoyed my science experience and it really helped me to be a better scientist and an educated consumer. To what I had to say, I certainly love science. I enjoy everything that we do here in WWP to promote science education. Please reach out to me with further questions or perhaps even in the chat later on tonight. And I look forward to getting to know your children further as they advance through the high school years. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Riley, and I'm the supervisor of language arts and ESL. Welcome. Just a couple things about language arts. It's pretty straightforward. You really basically have two options, which is LA1, we call CP, or LA1 honors. Similar to what Mr. Steck just said, language arts is what we call recursive. So in a lot of ways, it'll feel similar to middle school in regards to the skills that your children will be learning. And also in the way our units are set up. We have similar units at the high school like you have been seeing in the middle school. We always start off with a narrative unit because in language arts, it's all about the story and it's where it starts. Every year, we pretty much start with narrative and the story. And then we generally move into informational text and argument. So that's usually the sort of the trajectory of our courses. The big question that I often get from parents is, should my child take honors or CP? And that really is a good question, but it's not, a make or break question. Your child can go into CP in 9th grade and very easily move into honors in sophomore year. So it's really something that you can consider and talk to your child's teacher about. The courses are set up very similarly. We've changed them a lot over the years so that the students are reading almost all the same texts. One thing that's a little bit different than middle school is that we do have a little bit more of an emphasis on the classics. Your children will be reading, Romeo and Juliet. They'll be reading the Odyssey. They'll be reading Christmas Carol. It's done a little bit differently than it has been done in the past. We start off with more accessible text. This year, we revamped the whole curriculum actually last summer. So we have students starting off with more choice reading, which again is similar to the middle school. And we have them all start off with House on Mango Street, which is a very accessible text to start off our narrative unit. And then we designed the course to then sort of lead into informational text where they look at more research and social justice issues. And then we have saved the classics more toward the end of the year when we want students to kind of look at the classics with fresh eyes. So that's a little bit, of the changes that we've had in language arts at the high school. Again, if you're thinking about honors, it's just a decision. If your child loves to read, loves to write, feels very comfortable, by no means you should not, prevent them from going into honors. But again, you should not feel uncomfortable with them going into CP either. They're both great courses taught by very passionate teachers, and they will have a great 9th grade experience. We've done a lot of work over the years to make that transition a lot smoother from middle school to high school. The only elective that we have is journalism, which is also a great course, especially nowadays. It's such a relevant course for students. So I would encourage your children to look into that. And if your child is in ESL, that is another area that you can reach out to me if you have any questions about that. So enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you.
Hi, how are you? My name is Carl Cooper. I'm the social studies supervisor. South is a wonderful school. They're great teachers. The guidance department are just phenomenal people. So your children are going to have a wonderful time. The state of New Jersey requires that students take 3 courses in history, 1 world history, and 2 American history courses. We have our world history program in 9th grade. We study from roughly the 17th century to the modern age in world history. We do, however, have a focus on developing skills. We want our students to be able to think like historians and engage like citizens. So we do have an emphasis on critical reading, writing, literacy skills. Great program. If your son or daughter is thinking about the difference between world history or world history honors, we actually have the exact same units of study. We use the same essential questions in world history and world history honors to guide instruction, but we would differentiate between the 2 programs with more complex texts in the honors program. We would expect longer readings that students would be able to complete independently, and they would also have more elaborate writings that would come out of their process. If your son or daughter is going to enroll in LA1 honors, world history honors is a logical connection for it. That said, just as happens in language arts, should your son or daughter take world history and then after freshman year wish to move into American Studies 1 honors, that's an absolutely acceptable, that happens every year. It's not a problem whatsoever. So have a wonderful time. It's a little bit scary to send your kids off to high school, particularly during a pandemic, but the teachers and the guidance department, the administration at South will take care of your kids.
Hi, my name is Andrea Bean, and I am the mathematics supervisor for grades 6 through 12. I just want to echo what Mr. Cooper said. I'm a little disappointed that he beat me to it, but I started teaching. I started my teaching career at High School South in, I'm almost embarrassed to say, but September of 1987. And so I am very familiar with the culture of that building, and I can assure you that it's a wonderful high school. It's just a really great place to learn and grow as a person. The academics are definitely solid, but there's also so many opportunities in high school that are available to the students. So I'm excited that we're getting a new class every year. It's totally exciting to see new kids enter the building with that "ooh, wow" factor. So welcome aboard the pirate ship, so to speak. But let's talk about your math options. These are the options for courses for ninth graders in high school. You would take Algebra 1. If your child's currently enrolled in Math 8, then they would roll into Algebra 1. They do need to take a full year Algebra 1 course. As you saw on Dr. McDonald's slides, Algebra 1 is required high school graduation, for high school graduation. So all students must complete a full year Algebra 1 course. So if they're in Math 8 this year, they would need to take Algebra 1 next year. Our three choices for students that are currently enrolled in Algebra 1 and Algebra 1 Honors. There are three choices: Algebra 2, Advanced Algebra 2, and Advanced Algebra 2 Honors. So let's take a look at this. Let's start with Algebra 2. So right now in grade 8, Algebra 1 and Algebra 1 Honors are taught in the same room at the same time by the same teacher. We did that to expose all students to the honors material, but giving honors credit, so to speak, by assessing them differently. So if your child is currently enrolled in Algebra 1 Honors and is getting a C or higher, I recommend Advanced Algebra 2 Honors. If your child's enrolled in Algebra 1 and has an A or a B and you're considering Algebra 2, Advanced Algebra 2 Honors next year, my first question would be to you is, have you asked the Algebra 1 teacher to give your child some of the Algebra 1 Honors assessments to see how they do? Because the assessments do ask for a little more transfer of information and a little more spiraling. So a good thing to do between now and making your final choice would be to work with your child's math teacher and say, can you expose them to some of the honors tests? Let's see how they do. That should help you make a decision as to whether moving to the honors sequence would be better, or staying at the college prep sequence for another year might be your thing. If your child's in Algebra 1 and has a C or a D, unfortunately, I recommend taking Algebra 2. Algebra 2, we keep the classes just a little bit smaller to give more targeted experiences to these students to develop their math identities. Whether your child takes Algebra 2 or Advanced Algebra 2, they roll into the exact same geometry course. So it's just a step sideways to a little bit of a smaller targeted environment to build up those foundational algebra skills that are needed. And the last choice is Geometry, Honors, and Accelerated. That's for our students that are currently enrolled in Algebra 2, H and A. And if they are earning a C or higher, they are eligible to take Geometry, Honors, and Accelerated. I'd like to take a look at the next slide, which has a comparison of our math sequences on it. If you look at the bottom at grade 12, you can see that no matter where your child is enrolled, they will have a door open to, if they choose to pursue math to calculus. This is a very high level, rigorous program. So I say that because there is no need to take a summer course, to skip a course in your sequence, because every sequence has the opportunity for a child to end in a level of calculus in an honors or an AP course. If you do feel this need to accelerate in the summer, I'd like you to consider a few things. One, when looking at your transcript, that acceleration may not send the message that you're passionate about math. It may send the message that you are passionate about getting through the math and not learning it. Therefore, I recommend that if your child's truly passionate about math and you want their transcript to reflect that, take a math course that we do not offer in the summer. Take a discrete math course, a problem solving course. And those courses don't have an exam, and we will put them as an option 2 on the transcript. And that is a great way to show passion, to go above and beyond the offerings. If that does not appeal to you, and you would still like to enroll your child in a summer course, and you really want to skip one of our traditional courses in a sequence, I recommend that you do not do it in the summer between 8th and 9th grade, because you would have to enroll in the 9th grade course, which for most children is an algebra course. And algebra is foundational to the success of your child later in math. That's why the SAT changed about 7, 8 years back to being 2/3 algebra, because that's what predicts success. So I recommend that you wait 1 year, and in the summer between 9th and 10th grade, you take the geometry course. Again, welcome aboard. Your child's going to definitely be challenged in math. Our teachers are great and supportive no matter what you choose. And certainly if you have questions about your choices, the number one person to ask is your child's math teacher, because they know more about your child as a mathematician than most. That's their sole focus when working with your child. But if you do have any sequence questions, I'm always available via email. Have a great night.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Santoro. I'm the supervisor of fine and performing arts for the West Windsor-Plainsboro School District. And I'm here to talk to you about the offerings we have at the high school level in music, art, and theater. I can tell you very confidently that for those of you whose students will participate in our arts program at the high school level, you will be blown away at the quality of instruction and the social and emotional skills that get developed in these classes. I'll start with music. About 50% of your students are in one of our music programs statistically. So the easiest way to explain our music offerings is in 9th grade, you should just transition right to the 9th grade equivalent of the ensemble that your student is currently in. So for the students who are in 8th grade band, you would move right into concert band. For the students in 8th grade chorus, you would move right into chorale. And for the students in 8th grade orchestra, you would move right into string ensemble. All of our 9th grade ensembles at the high school level are just for 9th graders. It's not until 10th, 11th, and 12th grade that students have a chance to audition for the level that they participate in moving forward. We do this on purpose. This is to continue that cohort of students who have been playing together since they started. It's kind of nice whether you started in 4th grade for orchestra or 3rd grade for chorus or 5th grade for band. Most of the kids get to stay together all the way through 9th grade before they finally might split off and be in different ensembles. For those of you whose students are not in one of our music ensembles right now, they absolutely can join them in the high school. They are open to all students. You would just want to make contact with the teacher in that area as soon as you know that that's what your child wants to do, to figure out the best way to integrate them into the program. We have one other course at the high school level for music that's open to ninth graders, and that is two more courses. I'm sorry. We have a music theory course and we have a music technology course. Music technology is fairly new. This is the third year, I believe, we're running it. And it's basically, if you have the kind of kid who likes to open up, their Mac computer and play with GarageBand, or is interested in making their own music, or writing songs, or playing guitar and singing, that kind of stuff, music technology is a beautiful fit for that kind of a kid. They study, it's a lot of composition, it's a lot of producing, it's a lot of learning about the music industry. So there really is a place for every ninth grader to be in our music program at the high school, and they'll get a great opportunity. I do want to address one other thing. I get asked a lot what our music classes are like in a pandemic world. And I don't want to minimize the fact that it's a shame that we can't play together, at least not in the same way we used to. I can tell you that the teachers at the high school are doing remarkable things to teach kids about music while still having them sing and play their instruments. And what I've seen has blown me away. They're really finding a way to make the best out of what is a difficult situation. So don't feel that anything is diminished in what the kids are experiencing at the high school. It's just a little bit different than what we have done in the past. Moving to art, again, all of your students have experienced art, at least through the cycle program in the middle school, and a lot of them have taken our art electives. We have two high school art classes that are open for ninth graders. One is Art Foundation. Art Foundation is very similar to the experience your kids would have had at the middle school, whether they were in cycle art or whether they took elective art. It's a foundational class, as the title implies, and the goal is to cover a bunch of different areas of art so that for the students who decide to continue, they know the area they'd like to focus on. So whether it's drawing and painting, or whether it's sculpture and ceramics, or maybe photography, they can sort of figure out in that Art Foundation class where their interests lie in for the rest of their high school course selections. And then we also offer computer art and design. So we use primarily the Adobe suite, so Illustrator, Photoshop. I'm sure most people have heard of those programs. And the best way to think of computer art and design is it is an art class, but the medium is the computer instead of a canvas or some clay. And the kids make art on the computers. And if you've ever seen any of it at our district art show or in any other places, it's really amazing what they're able to do. And then the last class I'm going to talk about is we have a theater arts class at the high school that's open to all grades. And this is a fairly new class as well. It's been about 3 or 4 years we've been running it, but it is a great opportunity for a couple types of kid. Any of your children who were involved in any of the middle school plays or musicals over the last couple of years, this is the perfect thing for them to try at the high school. If they have the desire to be in the high school musicals or high school plays, this would be a class for them. It's also a really good place for kids who want to have an opportunity to find a way out of their shell. It's not a public speaking class, but there's a lot of public speaking elements built into it. How to address an audience, how to speak clearly and slowly so people can understand you, how to communicate ideas and feelings. And it's all taught from an artistic aesthetic. So we really have a lot of offerings in all different arts areas for your kids. And again, no matter what path they choose in the arts, they're going to be in really good hands with really caring teachers. So that's it for me. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to give everybody a second to go on there and pull out your phones and take a QR code and scan that, or take a screenshot. That link there is going to take you to all the different videos and resources that tell you about all the different courses we have in front of you. As you can see, there's a lot of different departments. My name is Dr. Ray. I oversee the 21st Century Life and Careers elective options. I oversee the Computer Science Department, Engineering, Family Consumer Science, Business, and Media. So there's a lot of different options. And so as you go ahead and grab your phones and jump on there, I do want to say that your child is in tremendous hands with a tremendous school district. So much that I have been at High School South, and I started here in 1977, where, to be fair, I did start as a preschooler in one of our programs called Child Growth and Development. I was a preschooler. I got to be enrolled there. So I have a total passion for the district, a total passion for being in West Windsor-Plainsboro. High School South is something that's very meaningful to me. So I'm still here. I took a short break to go to college and do those things, but I just did want to highlight a few of the courses. I know you can go and look at the videos and look at what's out there, but there are a few things that the computer science elective courses, especially we've got a lot of interest in the computer programming course in that sequence, especially in this virtual environment, because it's a wonderful course to learn virtually. A lot of the concepts transition very well into learning in a virtual world. The digital communications class, which was new this past year, talks about social media and the influence of social media into the world that you live. And if you live in a bubble of people that are like you, what kind of outcomes are going to come from that, and where you need to vet your sources and look at the different avenues and resources that make you a more well-rounded person and can make decisions based on what you read. Digital media is a course that's a little undersubscribed, but if your child loves to make websites and wants to make digital videos and movies, a wonderful place to go. We have a 4-course engineering sequence. There's only 3 listed because those 3 are open to freshmen. So if you're interested in if your child took STEM classes or D&E in middle school, some of those principles of engineering class is a wonderful place to go. It's a survey course of engineering. We have a brand new culinary arts room that's going to be started in this spring. So starting next year, we're going to have a multi-million-dollar new culinary arts wing, a room that's going to be fully revamped. The curriculum is designed and modeled after some of the Johnson & Wales courses. So if you are familiar with that, it's a wonderful place for kids to go and learn. Creative design, a lot of hands-on, creating different resources and artful creativity. And you're obviously moving on to the business courses. We have accounting and marketing. And then finally, the media courses. We have a lot of students that love to take the TV production class in the middle school, and this is a very different avenue for it. It looks a little different, but it takes on a more of a professional avenue in terms of a career versus making YouTube videos and fun. So it's a very different twist to what's offered in there. So, and one little side note before I leave you, is that West Windsor-Plainsboro is one of the very few school districts in the country now that still has their own terrestrial radio station. So we actually still have a broadcasting station, 107.9, and that broadcasts out of North. I have broadcast out South, but North and South students get to use it. But it's one of the few left around. So we do totally support that, and it's a great experience for kids to be live on the radio. I'm going to put it in the chat real quick for those of you that weren't able to scan that barcode with a link to some of the courses for you. But I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for coming out. And I'm glad your child is at High School South.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. Appreciate that. Just a reminder, we will make sure that there's a copy of this PowerPoint in that folder that I mentioned earlier that's in the chat, and we will open up the chat feature in just a few moments to let the audience ask questions. I wanted to highlight real quick the AVID program. AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. It's a program that we started this past year with much success. We have about 20 students enrolled in each high school. And really what it's meant to be is a 4-year scope and sequence to support students that may need a little bit more of a level of support, may not be getting that same support at home, that ultimately aspire to move on to a 2 or 4 year college. These are some of the things that are provided, the level of supports within the AVID program. There is information that will be put out to you shortly. There's an application process. We'll make sure that you have that information, that our 8th grade counselor also have that information to share out with students that may be interested in applying. These are some of the things that we typically look at when we screen applicants. Not necessarily that high flyer straight A students, but somebody certainly that's engaged that might need, again, some additional supports and push to be more college bound down the road. So take a look at that in the program of studies. Is that something you have questions? Please reach out to us. We'd be happy to answer those questions. I'm going to bring back up Ms. Dobinson, our athletic director, to talk through our athletic offerings at the high school level.
Hello, everyone again. This has been a very interesting year for athletics due to the pandemic, and I'm definitely looking forward to getting a little bit of normalcy back in. Our athletic programs in a typical year, our fall sports run from mid-August to early November. Our students do come back probably around the 17th of August for preseason practices and tryouts. In the fall, we offer boys and girls cross country, cheerleading, football, field hockey, boys and girls soccer, girls tennis, and girls volleyball. So there's a lot of different offerings out there for everybody. We then transition into winter sports. Winter sports is one of our quickest moving season, although sometimes it feels a little like it goes because you've got the late nights and the dark nights. But we've got boys and girls basketball, cheerleading, diving, ice hockey, boys and girls fencing, swimming, wrestling, and winter track. So again, a lot of different offerings out there. And then we finish out the year with spring sports, which start around early March to late May. Baseball, softball, boys and girls golf, boys and girls lacrosse, boys tennis, boys volleyball, and spring track. Due to the pandemic this year, there has been a little bit of adjustments with the scheduling of our athletics. We typically open up our fall registration towards the middle to the end of May. And then our winter registration will open up in early October, followed by our spring sports registration opening up towards the end of January. It's really important that you and your child pay attention to the registration dates. Not only do they need to register for the sport, but they also need to have a valid physical on file. And it's really important with the physical aspect that a physical is valid for 365 days, not a school year. So you have to kind of take that into account as you're registering and as you're planning your child's physical appointments. The athletic website is listed there, and we also have a website that's specific to High School South. So feel free to check that out, and you can follow us on Twitter. But we are doing a really lot of great things in athletics. So hopefully we'll be able to get some games going.
Thank you, Ms. Dobinson. Along those lines, just want to highlight a couple things in terms of the enrichment programs. You name it, High School South, High School North offers a variety of programs for students to be engaged. And I think that's one of the number one things. We want to make sure our students are not just succeeding academically, but they're pushing themselves outside of the classroom to get engaged, get involved. Doesn't mean that they have to sign up for 5, 6 clubs or sports or whatnot, but we want them to follow their passions, follow their interests, you name it. There's a whole list here. I'm not going to go through everything, but just about anything that your son or daughter is interested in, there's a way for them to get engaged and follow their passion, meet new friends, have new experiences that aren't just about the classroom experience. Option 2, Ms. Bean mentioned this earlier in terms of the option 2 process. I want to be real clear that first and foremost, it is an optional program. When you think about option 2, the purpose of it is really about finding alternative pathways for students. And Ms. Bean mentioned this. The ideal scenario is that if a student is going to take a class over the summer, which there's certainly no requirement that they do, and frankly, they will have a very rigorous program over their 4-year experience, so they don't have to do this. But if they choose to go that path, ideally if they're taking something that we do not offer as a district, and I want to really make sure that people understand that's really the purpose behind option 2. If you do end up pursuing this, just understand that there are certain requirements you have to make sure that you're following. Number one, the option 2 window for the summer of 2021 is open now. There's a hard deadline of May 1st. So you have to get a course approved that you plan to take by the district prior to enrolling and prior to taking that course. If you do not, you're not eligible to get credit for that course. So it has to be something you can apply to just about anything. We do have a course provider list, which is a great way to start, place to start. But again, that's not meant to be something that's a be all end all. You can look at other experiences, again, ideally that we don't offer. There is a limit for one course per school year, one per content area over those 4 years. There's a lot of requirements here. The other piece I want to highlight is that you have to make sure that at the end of that experience, there is a district assessment, and that district assessment must be passed with a C or better for a student to advance and ultimately earn credit. These statistics are on the district website. If you go under counseling, high school counseling option 2, there's a lot of information about option 2. And we simply share this because, as you can see from some of these percentages, there are certain subject areas where only, say, 50% of the students pass our exam, which essentially means that course was an enrichment experience. They do not get the credit as if they never took the course. I just want to make sure you're aware of that, and that, again, you're trying to, when a student does take a course like that, you're trying to squeeze a year's worth of material, instructional knowledge, learning into a 6 to 8 week experience. Hence why a number of students do struggle when they come back and have to take our district assessment, which we're required to give as by the state. So just want to highlight that. If you have questions, please reach out and certainly ask. Tips for high school success. You can read these, but these are some things that we shared with the students today, just as they think about their high school experience going into next year. First and foremost, I mentioned it earlier, selecting a balanced course load. I cannot stress that enough. Don't overextend yourself. It's better to start at a certain level of rigor and then work your way up over your 4-year career. Self-care could not be more important, especially now, whether that's sleep, diet, exercise. It's hard to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, right? I think as adults, we get that, but our students don't always understand that. We certainly will continue to support them and get them to kind of understand that. The time management piece, the goal setting, being active outside of the classroom, participation, all of these things. And, at the end of the day, they can't be involved in everything. Sometimes they have to say no, right? Sometimes we have to say no. And anything you can do along those lines as parents and having that conversation and certainly modeling that behavior is really helpful. And it helps us all be successful as a school district and moving our students ultimately to where we want them to be. So I'm going to stop my screen share here and hopefully open up the chat, because I'm sure there are a number of questions. So the chat should be open. Again, please reach out if you have individual questions. I would ask that you just keep that, in the interest of time, to general questions. So I'll just throw out a couple questions. Are there any co-ed sports? Ms. Dobinson, I don't know if you want to tackle that.
We don't have any co-ed sports per se. We do offer for example, swimming. We have a boys and a girls team. Same thing with fencing, a boys and girls team. So they're not necessarily competing as a co-ed level, but they will practice together. They will work together and go through all the different training regimens, but they are technically considered to be 2 separate teams.
Thank you. Another question just about option 2 with regards to taking a course, Algebra 2, that the student's already taken for over the summer. I just, again, Ms. Bean, I don't know if you want to jump in on that, but you can't take, if you're taking a course right now, anything Algebra 1 and above taken at the middle school level does go toward your graduation requirement, though you still have to have those 3 years of a math graduation requirement at the high school level. So in essence, you can't double dip or get credit for both courses.
An H&A student would take geometry H&A. You always take the next course in the sequence. So that's, if you look at the sequence list, you would take the next course in the sequence. Again, I don't recommend that because you're trying to squeeze a year into 6 weeks. And generally your foundation, the cracks will show. I also saw some questions about option 2, if there were where you can get the list of summer programs. We do have a list of pre-approved providers on the district website in the folder, as Mr. McDonald said. But you can also apply if you find a provider that's not on the list for a course that you would like to take, especially if it's a course we don't offer. You can just fill out the application and put that provider right in there, and the supervisor will look at it to make sure that it meets all the requirements set forward by the state of New Jersey.
So I would like to add on to the option 2 question. There's some questions about, do we only have math option 2 courses? We do have other opportunities in social studies, for instance, and you would find that on the district webpage under the other option 2 courses. There are a number of courses that are available online that we don't actually teach in the district. So African American history, there's some courses about the American judicial system. We don't have an equivalent course, and therefore we don't have a test for it. Students who have to take a course online that we offer, we do require a test. You should look at the passing rates to make an educated decision about the likelihood of passing our exam or not. But if we don't offer the course, there is no test, and a student can have the credit awarded on the transcript. So look at the social studies options for option 2.
Great, thanks, Mr. Cooper. I did post a link in the chat to the option 2 website. You can find that information there. A couple of just questions I want to highlight with regards to can a child step up in terms of honors and AP over the course of their high school career? Absolutely. And I think that really is the goal, that each year you up the level of rigor overall, and just be conscious of the balance, as we said before. So and a question just about band or music electives. Again, those courses, if you take a 4-year sequence, as you get into your junior, senior year, you're going to have room as you knock off some of your other requirements. Again, for example, you don't necessarily have to have 4 years of social studies or 4 years of math, although Mr. Cooper and Ms. Bean, I'm sure, will argue for that. So, again, it's all about balance. And once you get into that junior year, kind of finding your passion. So the schedule opens up where students do have other opportunities to take other electives. You can, as you go above and beyond the graduation requirements, you can swap those out, so to speak. Ms. Dobinson, I don't know if you want to tackle this one. Can a student pick up a new sport in high school if they've not necessarily ever played that particular sport?
Absolutely. We really encourage the students to come out and try different activities. Definitely at the middle school level, it's a little bit easier. At the high school level, we do go through a tryout process as we're kind of going through our selected teams. We really strive to have a varsity and a JV team as well as a freshman team, but it really all depends on the numbers of students who are interested. I saw a question also in the chat about registration dates. All of that information does get posted on the district website, but as we approach each start of registration, it gets posted in the high school newsletter, the middle school newsletter, and then I will also tweet it out. So there's a bunch of different avenues that we get those dates out to families to make sure that they're able to hit that registration deadline. Typically, the students have about a month, maybe a month and a couple weeks to register, and all of the registration occurs through the parent portal in Genesis.
Okay, great. Thank you. So there's a lot of questions that are specific to certain electives. I mentioned earlier that folder has a list of all electives by graduation requirement. Somebody asked specific to music. That does satisfy your fine and performing arts graduation requirement. But some of the other questions too, we have a number of our school counselors here from High School South that are going to answer a lot of these questions and go through some of the frequently asked questions that we do get. So I want to honor their time, honor our supervisors' time, and transition now to our school counseling team. With that said, I want to thank our supervisors and certainly Mr. Leppold for being on the call here. We appreciate your time in explaining all the different course offerings. As I said before, it can be overwhelming, but we're here to guide you. We're here to answer those questions that you have, pandemic aside. So thank you all. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Michelle Walsh, who is our lead counselor at High School South. She's going to walk through our second phase of our program this evening, introduce some of our school counselors, and talk a little bit about the scheduling process from here going forward. Ms. Walsh.
Thank you, Dr. McDonald. It's so nice to see all of you here tonight. Thanks to all the supervisors for giving such great information, albeit some head spinning probably information. So I want to start tonight just by kind of introducing the counselors who also took their time to be here this evening and talk a little bit about our goals tonight. And hopefully we'll answer, I saw a lot of questions in the chat. Hopefully we'll answer a lot of them and we'll be able to take some general questions if we don't answer all your questions by the end. So I will start. I'm Michelle Walsh and I'm the lead counselor at High School South. The letters of students that I'm in charge of kind of is CHO to F. So if your last name is CHO to F, I will be their counselor and we're their counselor for all 4 years. We stay with them from grades 9 through 12. To lighten the night up, we all thought we'd have a little fun fact about each other. So my fun fact is I am the varsity girls golf coach. So if any of your girls play golf, send them my way. But it was a special year this year because I actually got a hole-in-one. So I take every opportunity to brag about that. So this was my night. So then we'll kind of start in alphabetical order as far as students go, I suppose. So Ms. Fregosi. You're muted.
That's always the way. Hi, I'm Mary Fregosi, and I am the counselor for students with last names beginning with A through CHAN. And welcome. We're so happy to have our new 9th graders coming up. Just a little fun fact, prior to working at High School South as a counselor, I was a counselor at Grover Middle School for several years. So I bring a good understanding of the culture of the middle school, and I really understand where our new 9th graders are coming from and the concept of teams and just what they come from. So it really helps in the transition to high school.
Great. Next up would be Ms. Ficini.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Antonella Ficini, and I will be working with students whose last name begins with the letter G through KAR. Thank you for attending. And a fun fact about me is before I was a school counselor, I actually was a world language teacher in the district, and I used to teach Spanish at community middle school. And I actually use my Spanish in my work as a counselor, so I get to keep up with that as best as I can.
Awesome. Ms. Parrott.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brooke Parrott. I will be working with students whose last names are KAS through L. South has been my one and only home as a school counselor, and I'm proud to call it that. While I've been here for my long tenure, I've enjoyed coaching girls lacrosse and also serving as our peer leader advisor along with Miss Rooney.
Awesome. Miss Javik.
Hi, I'm Christine Javik, and I have students with the letters M through NE. And although Mr. Ray has me beat with his tenure in the West Windsor-Plainsboro School District, I have been here for over half my life, starting in the middle school, graduating from South before it was even South, and then coming back and spending my whole career there. So it's a really special place, and I think your students are really going to love it. So thank you.
Awesome. Miss DeSebastian.
Hi, I'm Sharon DeSebastian. I'm filling in for Sherry Smith, who's on medical leave. My fun fact is I have children who've graduated from High School North, and I did my internship at High School South.
Awesome. Mr. Alberto. Muted.
Yep, just saw that. I'm Mike Alberto. My fun fact is before I came to the district here, I used to teach high school psychology. I have been here for 20 years as a counselor now. So I hope your kids will be in good hands with me.
And where do you live? Because it's still light at your house in your background.
Yeah, that's the sunset that I see out of my living room every day.
Okay, Miss Rooney.
Wait, Mike, what are your letters?
I think I'm S's. Do I have anything besides S?
Yes, you do, Mike. You are S to SR.
Oh, thank you. S to SR are my letters.
And Miss Rooney.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I actually help counsel part of the S's, ST, through the end of the alphabet, Z. I've only ever in my entire career been at South, so I'm proud to say that I'm a former teacher at South and also coached 2 sports. And at one point, I was the student assistance counselor, so I got the opportunity of working with 8th graders once a week. So that was a great experience to get to know what their life was like at Grover. So I'm excited to welcome the class of 2025.
Awesome. I'm not biased, but we have probably the best counseling team in the state of New Jersey. So you're so lucky to be coming to High School South. Anyway, so we've been doing this program for a number of years, and what we have found, rather than just reading through the chat, or even if we were, in normal times in a classroom, just answering some of the same questions, we've sort of devised a list of frequently asked questions that we get over. We've even seen some of them in the chat already. So we're going to throw out the frequently asked questions and answer them thoroughly for you. And then if you have any other general questions at the end, we'll certainly be able to take a few minutes to answer some general questions. I also want to just let you know, and I hope maybe you already know it, but we all met with your children today. This afternoon, we met from 1:45 to 2:45, and it was great. I think everyone had great attendance. The kids seemed super excited. And it was a solid hour of interaction with them. So that was pretty exciting. In normal times, we'd actually physically be in Grover and be able to, wear our green and gold and like dance around a little bit, but we did our best on the Zoom thing. So here we go. Anyway, so we'll jump right into our questions and hopefully answer yours while we're doing it. Molly Rooney, you want to take that first question?
Yes, so the first question is, should students take all courses they are eligible to take? And the answer to that is no. I think as we've talked about tonight, as we talked about with the kids today, really, really important to think about balance. And that is something that we are going to continue to talk about in all 4 years. I think it's important to keep in mind at this point, the students have only been eligible for potentially up to 1 honors course. And they could be coming to the high school eligible for up to 5. And there is definitely a big difference between, 0 and 5 honors courses, as well as the expectations at the middle school and the high school. We also think it's important, as we continue to mention, that the students are involved outside of school. So that's where it's really important to have that conversation about how do you balance not only your academic load, but your activities, as well as just being a high school student. The goal for them for the 4 years is to show a journey of growth on their high school transcript. So it's important to show that strength of curriculum, but also that growth every year. So our advice would be make sure your students are challenging themselves, but within reason. And again, keeping in mind that balance overall.
Awesome. Thanks. Ms. Fregosi, your next frequently asked question.
So mine kind of overlaps with Miss Rooney's, but if a student does not take an honors level course their freshman year, can they take an honors level course in the following years? So the short answer to that is yes. For most courses, as long as the student meets the grade requirements for the honors level, which is a B or better in a regular class, then they can take an honors course the following year. So the only two subjects where that gets a little bit tricky is math and world language. So because these two are skill-based subjects where every year builds on the skills learned in the previous year, if you're moving from a college prep level to an honors level, you may have a little bit of a gap in some of that skill-based learning. So for example, students in Advanced Algebra 2 honors may cover a broader range of topics or a little bit more in depth than somebody coming from Advanced Algebra 2. So this might require a student to do some additional studying on their own in order to feel prepared to move from college prep to honors in those two subject areas. And like Ms. Rooney said, colleges are looking for growth over time. So if they don't have an honors class freshman year, they can certainly take one the following year. And the idea is to take courses that challenge them, but in which they can do well and not to overload too much too quickly. Yeah, that's kind of it. And then the only thing I was going to say is taking too many honors classes at the same time may limit a child's ability to do well across the board because their time is limited in what they can invest in each class. So we always strive for balance.
Balance, balance. Thank you. Ms. Ficini, you want to take on that next frequently asked question?
Sure thing. My question is study hall mandatory for all students? And the answer to this question is absolutely yes, for many good reasons. Study hall is actually built into every student's schedule, and it allows for the opportunity for a student to do a variety of things, such as meeting with their teacher who share a common prep period, meeting with peers to study, utilize our media center resources, attend AP labs, attend music lessons or vocal lessons, complete homework to reduce workload at home, prepare for projects and assessments, and yes, of course, to take a break when they need to recharge for the remainder of the day. So as you can see, study hall serves many useful purposes for our students.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. D. Sebastian.
Okay, the frequently asked question is, are all electives available to freshman students? And the answer is no. While we have many electives open to freshmen and many options, not all of them are opened. You can find out what is open to freshmen and all the prerequisites in our program of studies. We touched upon this a little bit before, but there's 3 categories of electives and you need 5 credits in each category to graduate. And as we discussed before, the one elect category is the visual and performing arts, which includes your art, your music, and your theater. There's 21st century skills, which Dr. Ray went over. There's numerous selections in that one. We have your TV reduction, your cooking classes, your child growth and development, business, engineering, robotics, that's just to name a few. And then there's the financial literacy elective, which is not open to freshmen, but no worries. There's plenty of time for your students to get that completed. And we did go over this all this afternoon with the students, and they got a little bit more of an inside scoop of what is available to them. Thank you.
Great. They actually got a list, and in their Google Classroom for the 8th graders, there's a scheduling booklet that has an exact list, and we've asked them to come with their top choice elective and then 2 alternates when we meet with them in March, on March 8th and March 9th. So thanks, Sharon. Ms. Javik?
My question is, can students change their schedule at any time? The answer to that is no. We are going to be meeting with all of the 8th graders again on March 8th and 9th to actually schedule their classes for 9th grade with them. Any changes after we finish meeting with them that they would like to make, they can talk to Mrs. Dukes, their school counselor at Grover, to make any changes. However, all requests need to be finalized by March 26th. So if we meet with them on the 8th or the 9th and they kind of have a second change of thought or, change of heart in what they wanted to choose for an elective, they can talk to Ms. Dukes and she can make that adjustment as long as it's before March 26th. After that, the schedule starts being made and sections start being planned out, so no changes can be made. However, in August, there is a short window that students can make adjustments to their schedule if availability exists in the courses they wanted to switch to. So there is a Google Docs. You'll be getting an email in the summer. You'll be able to request a change if that's possible. It'll be with your student's counselor. And again, but it's really based on availability, but that could be a change in any class that you could make a request for. Once we start school in September, there is a possibility at the end of September to request a level change. This is only a level change in the same course. So it's not a chance to change electives, but let's say that your student starts in an honors course and after the first couple of weeks of the course realizes this is not what I thought it was going to be. I don't think I'm going to be able to manage. The student can make a request for a level change. And that's, based on discussions with the student's teacher, with the student's counselor, to kind of go over that, make sure it's a good decision. And then if there is availability in the other level, we can try to make that change in their schedule. However, that only really goes until the end of September, September 30th, all schedules, levels, that'll all be finalized.
Thank you. Ms. Parrott, this is a popular question.
Yes. So my question is, do all students need to take an option 2 class? And I think Dr. McDonald and the other supervisors as well really gave some already terrific answers to this question. And the answer is no. Option 2 is just that, optional. While there are some compelling reasons to take an option 2 course, there's a large misconception that all students need to do so. So option 2, again, optional. It's for courses, it's intended for courses that are not offered in West Windsor-Plainsboro. For example, if your son or daughter had an interest in something like marine biology, and we don't have a course in marine biology, and they found one online that they could study. That was its true intention. Also, sometimes students might want to find a way to fulfill some electives as an option 2 course, not just one for advancement, so that they can make room in their schedule for other courses. So that's another possible reason, but again, not necessary, because there's absolutely room in your son or daughter's schedule to fulfill all of the requirements without having to take a summer course. Dr. McDonald did a fabulous job of outlining the option 2 procedures. If a student intends to take a class over the summer, they will need to apply for a course prior to that May 1st. And that deadline, again, is a hard deadline. Exceptions will not be made. All option 2 courses require approval before a student can sign up and register for that summer course. So please make sure that you've received an approval email from school prior to registering. And keep in mind that a student is only permitted to take 1 course per year and also 1 course per subject. So a student couldn't say, hey, I want to leave room in my schedule to explore some additional courses in social studies, and I'm going to elect to take multiple science classes. That's not allowed. Only 1 course per year per subject area. Again, you don't have to take an option 2. It's optional. You can also pursue summer study for enrichment purposes without having to earn credit for that. For those students who do option 2, I know this is a lot of stuff and wordy, I apologize, they'll need to pass the corresponding West Windsor assessment and provide their final transcript, and there are not guarantees for placement unless that test is passed. There are tons more information in the program of studies. You can refer to pages 9 and 10. I know that Ms. Rooney just posted that in the chat, so you can refer to that. And again, if you're thinking about math, I know Mrs. Bean really spoke to this, is that she highly recommends that if 8th graders want to take an option 2 course in math, that they delay and do so for geometry as opposed to algebra 2. No, that's long-winded, but thank you for bearing with me.
Thanks, Ms. Parrott. Bottom line, no, you don't need to take an option. We actually have a very rigorous curriculum, and there's also a lot of other things you can do in the summer besides take a course. And we talk to the students about a lot of options and stuff that come through our office, a lot of opportunities and things. So thank you. Mr. Alberto, take the next question.
Thank you. Yes. Are students required to volunteer? Students are not required to volunteer. It is not necessary for high school graduation, although it is a great idea for students to get involved in the school and the community in areas that they're interested in. So I think that's an important part of volunteering, is find something you're interested in. Your kids will enjoy it. They'll want to go to their volunteer opportunities when it comes around once or twice a week. And it's just another way for them to enjoy their high school experience. And it goes the same for getting involved in the school also. We have a lot of clubs that are available. We have a lot of sports that are available. And in September, when the new school year starts, we have a club fair so the kids can have some exposure, talk to people about the different clubs and sports that are available to them. And again, I want to mention balance here, because this is taking time out of your day, out of your week. So remember not to just schedule academic time, but to schedule extracurricular time, whether it's a sport or a club or volunteering somewhere, because that's going to take up time everywhere. So just to be sure the kids have enough time to do all of these, to do them well, and to still have a decent eating regimen, and to be getting enough sleep at night.
Awesome. Quality over quantity always with regards to extracurriculars. So my question actually is next, and the question is, are there supports in place to help freshmen during their first year? And there are lots of supports. We start first with the freshman orientation, which is usually held in late August, and you'll be getting information about that. This year it was virtual, but it was still really successful. Not sure what it's gonna look like in September, but it's always a great program. And they get to see the school, and they get to meet their peer leaders and hear about the different opportunities in high school and so forth. Once they're in high school, as Mr. Alberto mentioned, we have a club fair in the beginning. Our main theme in the freshman year is to get them to transition to high school, embrace our community, and sort of feel a part of our community. So we do a lot of groups and things like that surrounding that kind of theme. So the club fair that we talked about is encouraging them to find out what's available, how they can get involved, and so forth. Our peer leader program that Ms. Parrott and Ms. Rooney are in charge of run the peer group, which is something that comes out of, well, it used to come out of their study hall. This year it's kind of during lunchtime. It's still very successful, and the peer leaders run different activities and different things that they do within the group that help the students kind of address some of the social things that happen as a freshman in high school, get to know each other and other people maybe they didn't know before, develop their leadership skills, communication skills, and things like that. For academic support, we have a peer tutoring program where upperclassmen typically, but not even always, just someone, it could be a sophomore that had biology and now your child's in biology and they liked it and did really well. They offer to tutor peer. So they set that up, and we can, recommend peer tutoring. We also have what we call a tutorial after school program, and that's even running this year as well, virtually, but it used to run in school after school from 3 to 4. And in that, instead of having students, they're actual teachers of different subjects, math, language arts, science, that assist students that need help academically. And they can come from 3 to 4 each day, do their homework, get support, and things like that. In addition to sort of the programs that we have that I just mentioned, there's a lot of people here to support your child, and you're looking at one team of people that is here to support. We meet our freshmen early on. We do groups. We almost to the point of, nagging, well, what's going on in biology? I heard this, I heard that. And we have very regular contact with your children when they come to the high school. We also have a student assistance counselor who doesn't have a caseload, and she is here. She works with students in a lot of different capacities. She runs a lot of really great programs. And she also, if we feel like a student needs additional support, or she also does a lot of outreach through health classes and things like that. And students really tend to like her, so which is a good thing. And so she often makes tons of connections, and so she's another great support person. We have a relationship with University Behavioral Health, Rutgers Behavioral Health, where we have a clinician on site for students who need some social emotional health help, if they can get referred to that person, or if we have to do risk assessments, or we need just another support person to talk to a student who's, you know, not in a good place at the time. We have that kind of support. We have assistant principals, Mr. Hamnet and Miss Kruling, a new one. She just started like a couple of weeks ago, actually. And they're here to support the students as well. So I could go on and on about the supports at South, but in addition to, like I said, the programs and stuff, there's some amazing people, and we're all here really to help your child transition into South and become a real productive pirate. And our last frequently asked questions, and then we'll try to see some of the questions in the chat or what other questions you have. Mike Alberto.
Oh, thank you. The last question we have here is, should I contact the 8th grade counselor if I have questions about the high school? And the answer is yes, certainly. The counselors at the middle school are very well informed and experienced with what happens at the high school, and they're well qualified to answer questions about the high school. So from now until the end of the school year, feel free to contact Miss Dukes, that would be the 8th grade counselor this year, for any questions you have about the high school.
Terrific. So prove to us how thorough we were. We've developed these questions over a few years of getting a lot of questions. But if you have additional questions or anything, please feel free to type them in the chat. I noticed some of my counselors have been so great and answering some of the questions to everybody in the chat and providing some valuable links. So are there any additional questions, or did you guys see anything in the chat that should be addressed?
I just want to mention, because I did put it in there, there's a lot of questions about eligibility or prerequisites, and since we continue to say about, you know, growth in the transcript, as well as that you can take a college prep course one year and then honors the next year, all of that information is in the program of studies. Every single course has the prerequisites along with the grade eligibility. So if you have questions related to that, definitely get familiar with the program of studies, which was in the link, because those individual questions are answered right there with the course offerings. So I think that's a really helpful document to everyone on this call.
So someone just asked, if their child's taking social studies as option 2 in the summer, will they be studying American history in 9th grade? That is usually, that would be the reason probably to take world history in the summers, if you wanted to move ahead to your American history studies. Yes. Again, when we spoke to the 8th graders today, the option 2 subject came up. A lot of the conversation around option 2 is sort of like the why, like what are you trying to get to? If you're just taking it because it seems like the thing to do because your next door neighbor took it, that's probably not a good reason. You can do other things in the summer. You could get a job. You could, babysit your neighbors, walk dogs, or cut grass or something like that. To be honest, it's just as valuable on your kind of resume, if that's what you're looking at, than taking another course. Sometimes there's valid reasons for taking an option 2 course, or maybe you want to enhance, but if you're just if you're not really understanding, so the conversation when a student asks to option 2, if we're involved in that conversation, we always try to look and see, well, what is your point of, why are you trying to do that? Why are you trying to finish your history by 10th grade? What else do you want to take? Or why are you trying to exhaust your math? And so those conversations are really important to have when deciding whether or not to take an option 2 course.
Ms. Walsh, if I could add to that, I've just, flash forward 4 years from now, students applying to college. It's not as if the student that has 7 honors courses versus the one that has 6 is going to get in before the other one, and sometimes people think the more honors, the more AP, the more I can stack my transcript, the more likely I am to get into the school of my dreams, or the school that I think is the school of my dreams. That's just not true. And so there's something to be said about level of rigor, absolutely, but challenging yourself along the way. Don't feel as if you have to take a course to bypass another course to jump over the summer. Again, it goes back to, why do you want to take that course? As Ms. Walsh said, follow your passion, take something we don't offer that you're really interested in taking, or partake in some other activity that's going to widen your experiences. That could be volunteering, that could be some sort of service learning opportunity, whatever that is. There's a gazillion things out there. I know they're limited now because of COVID, but the reality is it's looking at that holistically, who that child is. It's not just, they're going to have plenty of courses over their 4-year scope and sequence. They don't necessarily have to take this extra course to reach their goals. So that's my side spiel again about option 2. And somebody asked too about just getting locked out of an elective. I can't remember which one it was, but just for the good of the group, I believe I mentioned earlier, we build our master schedule based upon student request. So ideally, if there are X number of students that want a certain course, we're going to do our best to make sure that we offer enough sections of that course so that they can take that course. It doesn't always work out that they get their first choice, which is why the counselors typically ask for multiple backups. And that's why we want you to use that tool in Genesis to give a couple different backups. But I will say, more often than not, students do get the elective that they want. It's not always, but I just want to put that out there. Somebody is also asking about is the physical needed for athletic participation. It absolutely is, and that's something that has to be updated yearly. But there's definitely information under our athletic website about those requirements, and our health services with our nurses too.
Thank you. I did want to emphasize, we threw a lot of dates out to you today, and I also felt like we threw a lot of dates out to your children today during our afternoon presentation. So just a couple things. March 8th and March 9th, we'll be meeting with your students to make their schedule. And Ms. Dukes has literally assigned every single student a time between March 8th and March 9th. Every 10 minutes, there's a student that's going to come into our Zoom room and meet with us individually. They'll be the only one in the Zoom room while we talk about their options. So make sure they know when their time is. I know she's really good at communicating that, but just remind them of that March 8th and March 9th. And then for option 2, the deadline is May 1st. And I don't know, Grover's nice people, and we're really nice people too. But when we talk about deadlines, they're hard deadlines, really hard deadlines. We're very strict about the deadlines at the high school. So that's super important. If you feel like your child is not eligible for a course and they want to try to appeal that and do an eligibility review that Dr. McDonald had talked about earlier, that deadline is April 1st. So we have March 8th and 9th, we have April 1st for eligibility review, and May 1st for option 2. And so keep those dates in mind. I'm actually thinking of making a timeline and giving it over to Ms. Dukes to put into the Google Classroom, because I think it's a lot of dates to remember. And then March 26th, that's another date, one more date. March 26th is the last day to change their mind. Then that's when we build the schedule, like Dr. McDonald said, based on the requests. So March 26th, whatever requests are in there, we start building based on that. Okay. You answered the propose a new club question. Great. Is there anything else, counselors, that we didn't talk about or that we should mention? Dr. McDonald, anybody?
I would just like to thank our High School South counseling team. They are awesome, as they proclaimed earlier. I will agree to that. I've worked with them for a number of years. You're in good hands, and it is National School Counseling Week. So bravo to all of you, and really appreciate you being here, volunteering your time at that to make sure that our parents are well informed. So appreciate everybody jumping online this evening. We will post this recorded conversation. We'll provide a link in that folder under departments, counseling, high school counseling, program of studies 21-22. So make sure that you check out that folder. All sorts of really good information in there. If you have questions, please reach out. Be well and stay safe, and thank you.
There's one last question in the chat, but sorry.
Sure.
About do we help them get information from the most of the students are not clear what they want to do in college. Do they get help from the counselors? Every year we work with students. Starting, like I said, the freshman year, we do a lot of transitioning into high school, getting involved in your community. And then in sophomore year in particular, we start a lot with career exploration and how that relates to college majors and what their interests and strengths are and so forth. So we spend a lot of time doing that. So please, you do not have to worry what they want to do in college right now. They might not even know when they're a senior, but they'll at least have a better idea of their strengths and interests. So that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Agreed.
Have a great
great
night.
night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.